should be impeached. Welcome to America's News Headquarters. I'm Eric Shaw.
And I'm Arthel Neville. So the House voting mostly along party lines this week to make the impeachment inquiry official. The president pushing back at a rally in Mississippi last night, defending his phone call with Ukraine's president and saying there is nothing to the Democrats' probe.
The president of Ukraine said it was a very good conversation. There was no pressure. His foreign minister said the same thing. No pressure. They must think we're nuts, to be honest. It's all a phony deal, this whole impeachment scam.
You don't need a quid pro quo. You just need the quid, and the quid was there. But now we are learning about the rest of it. And on that conversation, the President of the United States, in my view, violated his oath of office to the Constitution of the United States.
We have live Fox team coverage. Lauren Blanchard has reaction from Capitol Hill. We begin with David Spunt. He is at the White House. David.
Arthel, President Trump is also at the White House this afternoon. He has yet to tweet anything impeachment related, at least at this point. But a quiet afternoon on Twitter here at the White House follows a lively rally last night in Tupelo, Mississippi. Thousands of Trump supporters came out for that rally. The president touched on the economy and jobs numbers, also the raid in Syria that killed ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. But as is standard now, the president took some time to talk about impeachment, his likely impeachment in the House of Representatives. I say likely because the House voted last week in favor of moving forward with just the investigation on Thursday. But White House officials are now saying publicly they are prepared for the president to officially be impeached in the House of Representatives.
Yesterday, the Democrats voted to potentially nullify the votes of 63 million Americans, disgracing themselves and bringing shame upon the House of Representatives. They've been plotting to overthrow the election since the moment I won.
As far as a formal vote on articles of impeachment in the House, Speaker Nancy Pelosi has not made a date clear. Some in her caucus have told Fox News they believe by the end of this year. Others say the beginning of next year. If the president is impeached in the House and the White House is prepared for that, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell will have a trial on his hands in the Senate, but not the trial in a courtroom that we would know it. Senators would vote on impeachment. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts would preside. That's why his official title, Arthel, is actually Chief Justice of the United States. But you have to remember the Senate has a majority of Republicans. So Republican senators tell Fox News they feel confident the president would not be convicted there. President Trump set to leave from Marine One to Air Force One to take a trip actually up to New York City tonight, where he'll spend the night at Trump Tower. He'll be back here tomorrow at the White House. Arthel?
David Spunt. Thank you, David. Eric.
Thank you.
Arthel, the impeachment inquiry moving forward full steam now. Those public hearings, as David said, possibly starting soon. While both current and former Trump administration officials on the list of those witnesses who could be called to testify, Lauren Blanchard has more on what we can expect. She's in Washington. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, Eric. Well, some of these hearings may be scheduled, but it doesn't mean they'll actually happen. Energy Secretary Rick Perry's team says he won't appear until lawmakers are, quote, interested in conducting a serious proceeding. Even so, it's expected to still be a busy week here in Washington. On Tuesday, lawmakers are expecting Wells Griffith from the Department of Energy and from the Office of Management and Budget, Michael Duffy. Wednesday, lawmakers hope to see Energy Secretary Perry, who is leaving his job at the end of the year, but his office says not unless it's an open hearing, and even then, he'll only consider it. Plus, the acting OMB director, Russell Vought. Another possible no-show on Thursday, former National Security Advisor John Bolton. His lawyers say he will not voluntarily appear and are now waiting for a subpoena. Republican frustration is growing with all of the closed-door hearings. Representative Liz Cheney sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi last night calling for all transcripts to be made public. Even some Democrats say that should happen sooner than later.
The phase we're in right now is the deposition phase, where witnesses are called in to determine whether or not they have any information that's relevant to this case. At that point, we will move into the very public phase of hearings, which, frankly, I do think is overdue, to be fair.
And House Judiciary member Andy Biggs is calling on House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff to also face questioning.
Mr. Schiff will tell you, if he's honest, that there's nothing that's going on in that top secret room down the basement of the Capitol, that there's nothing classified there. But he is still trying to prevent that from coming out.
Speaker Pelosi says in the coming weeks they will be moving into more open hearings. And she says they are looking into releasing transcripts soon, Eric, although no word exactly when that'll be.
All right, Lauren, thanks so much. Marthel?
Eric, thank you. President Trump naming Chad Wolf as the next acting Homeland Security Secretary. The new job elevating Wolf from his undersecretary position within the agency to become the 5th person to lead DHS in 3 years. Lucas Tomlinson has more from Washington. Lucas.
Before departing for his rally in Mississippi, President Trump told reporters he has appointed Chad Wolf as acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security.
I put in a very good man who's highly respected, and he's acting right now, and we'll see where that goes. And as you know, John, I like acting. I mean, a lot of people say I like acting. It gives you great flexibility. I do.
It's not clear when Wolf will take over as acting DHS chief, the federal government's 3rd largest agency with over 240,000 employees. Wolf will be the 5th person to hold this role in the Trump White House. Officials say President Trump has no plans to nominate Wolf to the job permanently. Secretary Wolf is the former chief of staff to former DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and has risen through the ranks of DHS on and off since its creation following the September 11th terrorist attacks. His nomination as Undersecretary for Policy at DHS remains stalled in the Senate. Officials say Wolf has a very favorable reputation at DHS. Kevin McAlean, the current acting DHS Secretary, will remain on the job until Veterans Day, according to White House spokesman Hogan Gidley. Ken Cuccinelli, currently the acting head of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and seen as an immigration hardliner, is a potential candidate to take over in the future. At its creation, DHS was focused on counterterrorism. The Coast Guard was moved under its purview to protect America's ports. DHS is also responsible for enforcing the country's immigration laws, the signature issue for President Trump's agenda and hopes for a second term in 2020. There are now at least 10 acting secretaries and senior officials serving in President Trump's cabinet. In Washington, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
Now to California, where at least 13 wildfires continue to burn there, with red flag warnings still in effect for 2 Southern California counties. Meanwhile, Governor Gavin Newsom has some strong words for the utility company, PG&E, that has been mired in a bankruptcy case there over those deadly wildfires that authorities say its equipment started last year. Newsom saying that the case done soon, they've got to get that done, or the state, he says, will step in.
PG&E, as we know it, may or may not be able to figure this out. If they cannot, we are not going to sit around and be passive.
Christina Coleman is live in Santa Paula, California. She's about 65 miles northwest of Los Angeles, where there has been a fire burning there, as you can see. Hi, Christina.
Hi, Eric. Well, yes, the power was shut down to hundreds of thousands of people in northern and southern California as these strong Santa Ana winds move through the area. But the winds have calmed down, really giving firefighters a chance to get in here and get rid of some of this dry brush and clear out some of these hot spots that are still burning. We're in a lemon orchard right now. This is an agricultural community. There's lots of ranches and citrus groves and avocado groves. So firefighters really working hard right now. Now, this Maria fire burned at least 9,400 acres around here, threatened 2,500 structures, and burned down 3 homes since it started Thursday evening while kids were out trick-or-treating in nearby neighborhoods. The fire was fueled by the tail end of those strong Santa Ana winds that we've been experiencing. Now, crews have made some good progress here since yesterday on this fire. It's now 20% contained, but we're not out of the clear just yet.
As the wind shifts, we have a whole new fuel bed that opens up and is subject to a pretty significant firefight.
Now, this is video from when the Maria fire started on South Mountain, just south of Santa Paula. Utility company Southern California Edison said it re-energized a 16,000-volt power line minutes before a nearby hilltop went up in flames, leading to the Maria fire. But the cause of this fire is still under investigation. And you could just see out here right now that smoldering there. It's incredible the number of hot spots that are still burning. These firefighters have just been going from spot to spot, putting out these hot spots as quick as they can. And as for that red flag warning, it's expected to last at least through 6 o'clock this evening here, local time. Eric?
So, Christina, those firefighters, I mean, they're putting out what was burning along there. Is that smoldering that we see?
Yeah, there's a lot of embers that are still smoldering. You have a lot of hot spots out here. And, you know, it just takes seconds for one of these embers to flare up. And if the winds kick back up, they can spread fast and spark up another fire. And they definitely do not want that to happen.
Wow.
Eric?
Absolutely. All right, Christina, thank you. Arthel?
A fifth person has died from a Halloween night shooting in Northern California. Shots ringing out during a party at an Airbnb in San Francisco, in a suburb there. Police are still searching for suspects as we learn more about the person who rented the place. Jackie Heinrich is live in our New York City newsroom with the latest on this story. Jackie.
Arthel, police so far have no suspects in custody and are dealing with the grieving families of those 5 victims, as well as one very upset homeowner. The shooting happened at a rented mansion in Orinda, California, just outside San Francisco. More than 100 people were there after local media reports someone circulated this post on social media promoting an Airbnb mansion party. The property owner told the Washington Post he rented his house to a woman who claimed she was organizing a 12-person family reunion. The local NBC affiliate further reported the woman said she chose that location to escape smoke from nearby wildfires. Halloween night, the Post reports the homeowner got some noise complaints from neighbors. He checked his security cameras and saw a huge crowd, so he called police. They were already en route when the shooting happened. 3 people died at the scene. 2 more died in the hospital. The victims' ages range from 19 to 29 years old.
This is a party that had over 100 people in it. And all of those people are potential witnesses to what happened. And we're working to locate as many of those people as we can and obtain statements from them.
Police found 2 guns at the house, but so far have no suspects. Today, Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky said the company will crack down on party houses because of this. In a series of tweets saying the Airbnb company will increase manual screening for high-risk reservations, create a dedicated house party rapid response team, and take immediate action against users who violate their rules. Chesky said on a tweet, "We must do better and we will. This is unacceptable." Both California Governor Gavin Newsom and Senator Kamala Harris responded to this incident by pushing for tougher gun control laws. Eric?
All right, great. Thanks so much. I'll take it. Meanwhile, an impeachment vote passing along party lines in the House. So we're going to ask coming up, what are the chances of an actual impeachment? And what could happen in the Senate, a full-blown public trial? Or, as Mitch McConnell has hinted, something much less? investigating former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter, but arguing that's not an impeachable offense. John Decker is with us, his attorney and Fox News Radio White House correspondent who's on the North Lawn. So I guess, John, the argument that some senators may be willing to accept is, okay, he did it, but it's not illegal and it's not impeachable. Do you think that's going to wash?
I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening for a number of reasons, Eric. First of all, the president, as you know, has maintained from the start that this was, in his words, a perfect call. There was no quid pro quo, no trade-off of any kind. And those who speak on behalf of the president have also lined up behind the president in that regard. I don't think it would hold water with a number of moderate senators, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Susan Collins from Maine. And then, of course, you saw the pushback that Mick Mulvaney, the White House chief of staff, got when he essentially described a quid pro quo, a trade-off during that White House briefing just a few weeks ago. So I think the president, I think the people that support the president, his allies in Congress, will stick by what the president has said, that there was no trade-off of any kind between the U.S. and Ukraine.
And yet you still have these reports that are floated. I mean, what's behind them? That say, well, there was no criminal intent. You've got to show a corrupt intent, and that he did not have a corrupt intent. He was just trying to seek an investigation of what he thought was corruption.
Well, you have this phone call, which has been described by the president as being transcribed. It's actually a summary, a very good summary of the phone call the president had on July the 25th with President Zelensky of Ukraine. And speaking as a lawyer, looking at that summary, do not see evidence of a crime on the president's part, anything that rises to the level of an impeachable offense on the part of the president. Was it perfect? I don't think so. Was it inappropriate? Yes, but I don't think it rises to the level of a criminal act on the part of the president. And I think that's the sort of line that we're hearing to a certain extent from certain members who are defending the president out there when they are confronted with the idea, do you support the president in the sense that this was a perfect phone call? It's very difficult for a member of Congress who's a Republican to say, yes, I do. But at the same time, what's contained in that summary is not criminal the way it's presented.
And why do you come to that conclusion? I mean, there are ellipses, there are parts, ... where clearly they left stuff out. And there have been reports that they left some stuff out that could be perhaps would not exonerate the president. Why do you come to the conclusion that you have reached?
Well, the conclusion I come to is based upon the fact that based on that summary of the phone call, there is no contained in that summary a quid pro quo. There's nothing contained in there that is something for something. In other words, you, Mr. President, Mr. Zelensky, will investigate my political opponent, namely Joe Biden. And in return, I will release that $400 million in military assistance to you that's already been appropriated by Congress. Nothing is contained in that so-called transcript that we've seen, that summary of the phone call that we've seen that indicates that. Now, this phone call obviously was problematic for a number of individuals, including Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Zelensky,
Vindman, you mean?
Vindman, who sits on the National Security Council, to the degree that he brought it up to the chief lawyer on the National Security Council, who in turn put it on a secure server. So obviously, this was not a perfect phone call. But was it criminal? According to Timothy Morrison, another individual who listened in on that phone call, he did not believe so. He did not believe that it rose to the level of criminality on the part of President Trump.
But for an impeachment, you don't. We're told you don't need a crime. You don't need a criminality. You just need high crimes and misdemeanors, or something that is unbecoming and against the Constitution and the oath that the president took for the United States. Let me play you a soundbite of Adam Schiff, because Democrats would certainly disagree with your assessment. Here's Mr. Schiff.
In both Clinton and the Nixon impeachments, the minority did not have the right to call witnesses on their own unilaterally. They could call for a vote, but it was a majority vote that they were not assured of winning. So we would love to hear who they're interested in having come before the committee. But given the kind of circus-like tactics, the storming of the skiff and all the stunts the president, puts them up to, we can't surrender the process to the minority party.
That's him, of course, talking about the process. But finally, John, I mean, look, an impeachment vote, then it goes to the Senate. And we're having indications that Senate Minority Leader, the Majority Leader, under the law, they take up impeachment, but we don't know if that means a full-scale, long impeachment trial like President Clinton had. That lasted 2.5 months. Is there any expectation on what this will be? Could the Republican Senate take a look at this and throw it out in one day? Or spend 2 months with the full, complete trial like the previous?
Yeah, I think that the majority leader has given every indication that it would be not a short-circuited process as it relates to what takes place in the Senate. We will see a trial if indeed these articles of impeachment are voted out by the House, which seems likely, certainly by the end of the year. We would indeed have a trial similar to what we saw back in 1999 that ended in early 1999, in February 1999, of course, with the acquittal of President Clinton. I think that we would see something very similar to that, perhaps in duration as well, coming under Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell when he takes that up once it gets to the Senate.
And I know this is a big one, but, what do you predict? How do you see this rolling out? And what do you expect?
Well, based upon the facts that we have right now, and more can come out, but based upon the facts that we have right now, the second day of November, I think that what we saw in the House, which was unity among Republicans, will hold true in the Senate, even among those individuals in the Republican ranks who are up for re-election. They're going to stick by the president, and so as a result, likely an acquittal in the U.S. Senate if it gets that far, Eric. And that's, I think, the way things stand right now on November 2nd, not knowing what other facts may come out in the weeks and months ahead.
All right, John Decker, who covers the White House so ably for us here at Fox News. John, of course, always good to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
And Eric, as President Trump's impeachment inquiry moves into the next phase, our Capitol Hill senior producer, Chad Pergram, explains how a Senate trial might work.
The Constitution says little about how the Senate conducts an impeachment trial. Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution says the Senate, quote, has the sole power to try impeachments. The Chief Justice presides, and it takes a 2/3 vote to convict.
Under the impeachment rules of the Senate, we'll take the matter up. The Chief Justice will be in the chair. We intend to do our constitutional responsibility.
But on CNBC, McConnell took a different tack.
I would have no choice but to take it up. How long you're on it is a whole different matter.
I've covered Mitch McConnell for a long time now. I've learned to parse his language. He usually says exactly what he means. The Senate would have to take up articles of impeachment, but nobody knows for how long. Consider this. Senate Impeachment Rule 1 says the Senate, quote, shall immediately inform the House that it's ready to receive the articles. That involves a vote. Then the House sends over the articles along with a team of managers, House members who serve as prosecutors. Senate Impeachment Rule 2 says the Senate recognizes the House's impeachment managers and the articles shall be exhibited. That means the Senate reads the impeachment articles aloud on the floor. Now the Senate has, quote, taken up impeachment. But as McConnell says, for how long? 67 votes are needed to quash one of the Senate's impeachment rules, but just 51 votes are required to dismiss the charges. Legendary West Virginia Senator Robert Byrd tried to dismiss the charges against President Clinton in 1999 and failed on a roll call vote. That's largely because then Senate Majority Leader Trent Lott and Minority Leader Tom Daschle got all 100 senators together in the old Senate chamber to establish ground rules for Clinton's trial, even if senators disagreed on the president's guilt or innocence. Senators decided to stick with the gentleperson's agreement despite Byrd's effort to short-circuit the trial. It's hard to imagine how all 100 senators could agree on special arrangements for a possible trial of President Trump in today's supercharged atmosphere. The Senate has never terminated an impeachment trial before its conclusion. But in 2009, the Senate flushed articles of impeachment for federal judge Samuel Kent. Kent resigned after the House impeached him, but the Senate never conducted a trial. An impeachment trial ends with a vote. All 100 senators rise and vote verbally from their desks when their name is called in alphabetical order. 67 yeas are needed to convict and remove an official from office. So if the House impeaches President Trump, the Senate will at least have to take it up. But what happens after presenting the articles of impeachment is far from clear. On Capitol Hill, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
Well, ISIS has a new man in charge, we're told, as it issues another threat to our country. What this means for our battle abroad against terrorism.
We really are in a battle for the soul of the country. This is not who we are, the way this man and his administration is conducting world affairs and or affairs at home. And the things he says, the way he talks about people, it's just disgraceful. As my grandmother used to say, if you spoke like that, we'd wash your mouth out with soap.
That's former Vice President Joe Biden, of course, setting his sights on President Trump as he campaigns in Iowa. You know, several other 2020 candidates have also descended on the Hawkeye State today. They're attending a political fish fry, and among them are Senator Elizabeth Warren. She is defending her newly controversial release plan to fund Medicare for all. That has come under fire from some of her Democratic rivals. Matt Finn is in Cedar Rapids live with the very latest on what they're doing and what they're saying today. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Eric. Well, we are at a classic Iowa fish fry. These famous community meals are used as an opportunity during presidential elections to host candidates and forums. You could see on the stage right now live is Senator Kamala Harris, who is talking to local union leaders. This particular fish fry is being hosted by Democratic Congresswoman Abby Finkenauer. Major Democratic frontrunners have already taken to the stage, including Congresswoman Amy Klobuchar, Senator Bernie Sanders, and Vice President Biden, making their appeal to these first-in-the-nation voters. It's part of a jam-packed political weekend here in Iowa, less than 100 days until the country's first caucus. Perhaps the biggest topic this weekend, Elizabeth Warren's newly unveiled $52 trillion Medicare for All plan, being widely criticized as fundamentally impossible. Biden has been attacking it all weekend here in Iowa, saying it's a tax on the middle class and will end private health care. Elizabeth Warren defends it, saying it won't cost the middle class a penny. A short while ago, Elizabeth Warren said Democrats have to fight for big ideas like hers or they're going to lose.
The way I believe that we're going to win as Democrats, we got to be out there to talk about big ideas. We've got to give people a reason to show up.
That Donald Trump's got.
Senator Kamala Harris's campaign is now saying it is placing all of its resources into this state of Iowa, even closing campaign offices in New Hampshire. So it's all or nothing for Senator Kamala Harris, who's on the stage right now. And, of course, another big talker this weekend, Beto O'Rourke, suddenly dropping out of the race yesterday, just a few hours before the very critical Liberty and Justice dinner here in Iowa. Eric.
All right, Matt. Thanks so much. Martha.
Eric, thank you. Well, ISIS names a new leader following the death of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi during a U.S. raid in northern Syria last Sunday. For more on this and the terror group's threat of revenge of the United States, let's bring in the author of Hunting the Caliphate, America's War on ISIS and the Dawn of the Strike Cell, retired Army Major General David Petard, who is also the initial U.S. commander on the ground fighting ISIS in Iraq in 2014. General, thank you for being here with us.
Well, good afternoon, Arthel.
Absolutely. So we're just reporting here that the new leader released a 1,200-word communique threatening revenge on the U.S. How seriously do you take this threat?
I think we should take that threat very seriously. Now, ISIS has been dealt, a catastrophic blow with the death of al-Baghdadi, but ISIS is still a dangerous and lethal terrorist network. ISIS still has global ambitions. Now, they lack some of the capabilities they had before. In fact, many of the capabilities they had before, but they're still a dangerous terrorist network. So we should take that threat seriously.
And if you were to surmise, and based on your expertise, what or who is the likely target?
What they would like is to target, I'm sure, the West and America. But their capabilities are more likely going to be regional. Since they're no longer the territorial and geographic caliphate that they used to be, they're probably only capable of doing hit-and-run guerrilla activities, car bombings, and assassination attempts. But they still have the capability of radicalizing individuals in different countries. So I guess my advice to us here in America would be to be aware and prepared.
I want to circle back to that, but sticking with ISIS and how you're saying they're not as organized as they used to be, but could they join forces, say, with al-Qaeda to create a more threatening terror army?
Oh, and they could. They could. They still have thousands of fighters that are in the region. And ISIS can still appear in failed states and areas where there's ungoverned spaces. So they could actually do that.
So seen as you're thinking whatever retaliation that they might be able to take in the more immediate sense, at this point you're saying it would be in the region. So what is the U.S. strategy, or what should it be there in the region, you know, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Iran?
Well, number one is to work with our allies and others who have an interest in seeing ISIS completely defeated, whether that's Turkey, whether that's Iraq, even Iran, Russia, and Syria, and others, working together to have the final defeat of ISIS. And then a long-term strategy. And that's something that I would hope that President Trump and his advisors are working on, because it's something we really haven't seen, is this whole government approach, which includes not just the military, but diplomatic, informational, economic, and other means overall as a long-term strategy for the region.
You mentioned how ISIS still has a really good operation in terms of radicalizing the so-called lone wolves. How prolific and prevalent are sleeper cells here in the U.S.?
It's been reported that there are some. So that's, again, where we need to be aware and prepared. And so between our national security apparatus as well as state and local authorities. But, you know, I have faith in the American people, and it's American citizens who are aware and prepared. I mean, that is a combat multiplier. So if you see something that doesn't look right, something suspicious, tell your local authorities and police. And that's one way of really, really being able to thwart this.
Right. So when, you know, local authorities and major cities, it could happen anywhere. Hopefully nothing happens. But when you're talking about putting a plan in place to protect the homeland, you know, you're right. It does call on citizens to, if they see something, to say something, and not to worry so much about being politically correct.
Well, again, if you see something suspicious, then report it. Again, there's nothing like a populace, the American people, that are informed and are prepared.
So listen, finally, General, wrapping up, listen, killing al-Baghdadi was no doubt a big deal, a major accomplishment. However, it's my understanding that he was already less effective and contained. So was killing him like striking the hornet's nest?
I don't think I would quite use that analogy. In fact, killing him was good as far as being symbolic, that the geographical territory-owning caliphate had already been defeated. And killing al-Baghdadi was really symbolic of that. For the last couple of years, the ISIS leaders have been less effective. In fact, they've been in some cases irrelevant because they've been more concerned about their own safety than leading ISIS. And that's where we want them.
Very
and so
good.
The momentum must continue and continue to kill or capture the other ISIS leaders.
Good. I'm really glad to hear what you said. And it's not the hornet's nest analogy, but it's the symbolism of killing him, which is very, very crucial. General Dana Pittard, it's nice to talk to you, and I look forward to speaking with you again, sir.
Thank you, Arthel.
We'll come up next. We'll have several signs that point to the economy staving off a slowdown. That's good news. But how long could it last? We'll tell you. Oh, job numbers and corporate profits soothing fears of an economic slowdown, at least for now. You know, the October jobs report released yesterday exceeding expectations, with the economy adding 128,000 jobs. The employment rate, as you can see, ticking slightly to 3.6%, but that's still a 50-year low. What does this mean? Robert Wolf joins us, Fox News contributor, former economic advisor to President Obama. So, Robert, you know, what does all this mean? You get everything month to month. You see this continuing. Yet sometimes you hear there's a slowdown. Where are we?
Well, I don't want to be negative, so I would say the glass is half full. That number was better than expectations, but it's been below the average. We've been averaging about 165,000 this year. But last year in 2018, we were averaging about 225,000. So the job sector is slowing. And Eric, as we were chatting before, we have definitely had a slowdown in manufacturing and retail. So, you know, it's no disrespect to the president. We're not in the greatest economy ever.
All right, so it's like a mixed bag, in other words.
It is a mixed bag. I mean, the Farm Belt, obviously, we've had 2 bailouts. I think that the whole idea of tariffs and trade has really slowed down business investment. We've had back-to-back quarters on slowdowns of business investment, which is a contraction. And I think most importantly, GDP has slowed to around 1.5% to 2%. So we're not at the 3-4% that we saw during the year of the tax cut.
And what does this mean going forward? What do you foresee for this rest of this year and next year?
I think we're going to continue to see consumer spending. Consumer in the services sector has been what's really kept the economy afloat and doing well. I think you're going to continue to see wages kind of, you know, I hope continue to move up, but they're probably going to stay around 3% increase. GDP is going to probably stay below 2%, which is chugging along. I don't see us going into a recession. We'll probably continue to be the best economy, you know, there is throughout the globe. And I think, personally speaking, corporate profits are doing well, but it's what do they do with their money? Dividends and buying back stocks have been buoyant for the marketplace, but it hasn't necessarily been great for skills and training. We still have 7 million people unemployed looking for jobs.
That's 7 million. I mean, it's amazing. The president said this about the economy last night.
To get relief to working families, we passed massive tax cuts, on average $2,000 to $2,500 per family, bringing almost $1 trillion back home to our shores. What's happening? You couldn't get the money. The big companies, they couldn't get their money back.
The president, of course, boasting about the economy and the condition, the good condition that we are in. He said the magic word, tax cuts. There's discussion today that the White House may roll out some tax cuts for the election year, for the 2020 election. Do you expect that? What do you think?
I don't think we'll see a tax cut in 2020. I think we'll see a lot of talk about a tax cut. I don't think a tax cut can get passed. And the last tax cut was really a deficit spent tax cut. We had a tax cut that caused a deficit of over $1 trillion. So although I'm for tax reform, I'm not really sure we saw a great trickle-down economy happening.
Do you think we can get a handle on that deficit? We haven't heard about the deficit issue for a while.
You know, I feel sometimes I'm to the right of all these fiscal conservatives. What happened to their pay-as-you-go? What happened to this idea that when you're going to spend money, you actually make sure you can pay for it? So it's going to be very interesting. You know, when they were predicting this tax cut, what it would do for revenues, they were predicting 5+% growth. We're not seeing that, so that's why we're seeing the deficits.
All right.
And now we're at 1.5% to 2%.
Okay, that means that's something they're going to have to tackle.
They are going to have to tackle.
All right. Robert Wolf.
Thanks for having me on,
Of course. Right, Thel?
And hello to Robert's mother, who is watching us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, Hong Kong falling into recession as violent protests rocks the economy. How the government is responding, that is up next.
The Japanese are planning something big.
In a time when America stood for honor and sacrifice,
man your planes.
All they needed
Here they come!
was a little faith.
You'll remember this moment for the rest of your life.
Midway, rated PG-13, Friday. Sure, you can get a premium steak at a steakhouse. No surprise there. But real petite filet steak sandwiches at an Arby's house? Surprise.
As police clash with anti-government protesters today, demonstrators setting fire to metro stations and vandalizing buildings. Ryan Chilcote has the latest developments. Ryan.
Arthel, many of the demonstrators were scared off by the tear gas that the police were using, but not all. Angry mass protesters made their way through Hong Kong streets, attacking the police with Molotov cocktails, vandalizing shops they felt were sympathetic to China's central government, and broadly speaking, unleashing chaos. Now, these protests have been going on for 5 months, but by the look of things, the protesters are only getting more audacious. Bear in mind, Hong Kong is part of China, but it is semi-autonomous. The protests began over some legislation that would have allowed Beijing to extradite people from Hong Kong to mainland China, but the protests are now about much more than that. The demonstrators want more autonomy, and they are appalled at how Beijing has reacted to their demands. This is Causeway Bay. It is effectively Hong Kong's Times Square. Remarkably, you can actually see the tear gas enveloping whole streets. And in a first in these protests, protesters broke into the headquarters of China's official news agency in Hong Kong, the Xinhua news agency, and trashed it. Now, November the 24th is a big date later this month to keep your eye on. That's when Hong Kong will have local elections, and those local elections will be an excellent opportunity to measure the strength of the pro-democracy candidates that are running in it and this protest movement behind them. It's also given a date where, given what we've seen so far, we're likely to see more violence on the streets. Marthel?
All right, Ryan Chilcote, thank you very much. Eric.
Well, back here at home, the fight is on in Washington as the White House says it is preparing for impeachment. So what is the next move for House Democrats in that growing probe?
From sunrise to sunset.
NASA launching a rocket from a flight facility in Virginia this morning, a spacecraft filled with 8,200 pounds of supplies. Now bound for the International Space Station. It is expected to arrive there early Monday morning. The cargo will be delivered to 6 astronauts stationed at the ISS. Among the items, Eric, is a specially designed oven for baking cookies.
Ooh, cookies in space.
Yay.
Well, there's a championship celebration in Washington today, nearly a century in the making. Thousands upon thousands lining up along Constitution and Pennsylvania Avenues in D.C. for the Washington Nationals World Series parade. The team beat the Houston Astros, as you know, in Game 7 to win its first title in franchise history. Dates back to when it was founded as the Montreal Expos at first. Happens to be Washington's first World Series championship in 95 years. The team will go to the White House for a big celebration on Monday.
That deserves a woohoo.
It does, in fact.
Congratulations. Well, Republicans coming to President Trump's defense as Democrats ramp up impeachment efforts with a House-passed resolution formalizing the inquiry, as the White House says it is prepared for an impeachment to happen. Hello, everyone. I'm Arthel Neville. This is a brand new hour of America's News Headquarters.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Shawn. Thanks for joining us today. In his first campaign speech since Thursday's House vote, the president told supporters at a Mississippi rally last night that he was not concerned, as Speaker Nancy Pelosi again defended the ongoing investigation. She argues the president's actions with Ukraine left Democrats no choice but to take action.
Witch hunt. This is one I never thought I'd be involved in. The word impeachment, to me, it's a dirty word, not a good word. Totally phony deal. They know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why we've never had greater support than we have right now. It's true.
This is not about his personality or his policies. That's for the elections to decide. This is about our honoring our oath of office, about whether he's honoring his oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Well, we have live Team Fox News coverage for you now. Lauren Blanchard standing by in our Washington bureau on next week's impeachment witnesses. Let's begin with David Spunt, who's live in the North Lawn of the White House. Hi, David.
Hi, Eric. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, as you saw right there, she said she wants to make things as transparent as possible, hold public hearings actually in the next few weeks. But President Trump and members of the Republican Party say they're not fully sure if she means that, if that's going to be the case. They say that Americans have been in the dark the entire time. Meanwhile, President Trump was down in Tupelo, Mississippi for a Keep America Great Again rally last night. And he used this whole impeachment ordeal as a rallying cry for his supporters.
To me, it's a dirty word, not a good word. Totally phony deal. They know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why we've never had greater support than we have right now. It's true.
On Thursday, Democrats with a majority voted on the House floor to move forward with the current impeachment inquiry. This was not a vote to actually impeach President Trump, just to set up parameters for the future of the investigation or inquiry. That being said, the president's press secretary said yesterday on Fox News White House officials are prepared for the worst case scenario. Listen.
I mean, we are still obviously hopeful that everybody will come to their senses and realize that the president did nothing wrong. But we are prepared for an impeachment to happen, yes.
You are prepared for an impeachment to happen?
Yeah, I mean, Nancy Pelosi has made it very, very clear that the House Democrats are going to vote.
But Pelosi has said on the record that she is just in the inquiry stage right now, the investigation stage. She has not announced anything about a formal impeachment vote on the House floor. President Trump behind me is going to leave in about an hour and a half to 2 hours to head up to New York City tonight, Madison Square Garden, to watch a UFC championship fight. He'll be back here tomorrow at the White House, but a busy week on Capitol Hill, and you can bet the president and his staff will be watching it closely. Eric, Arthel.
Yeah. All right, David, thanks so much. Arthel.
And Eric, meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, Democrats are forging ahead with the inquiry, inviting 3 more top White House officials to testify in closed sessions next week. And House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she expects public hearings to begin later this month. Lauren Blanchard is live in Washington with what's next for the witnesses. Lauren.
Arthel, there are a number of hearings scheduled, but they are not guaranteed. Speaker Pelosi says while the process will start to become more public, that's not good enough for many Republicans. Representative Liz Cheney sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi last night asking for the public release of all transcripts in the impeachment inquiry, saying, quote, "The selective leaking in which the House Intelligence Committee has been engaged must end immediately, and the full and complete record must be provided for the American public to see." As for scheduled hearings, on Tuesday, lawmakers are expecting Wells Griffith from the Department of Energy and from the Office of Management and Budget, Michael Duffy. Wednesday, lawmakers hope to see Energy Secretary Rick Perry, who is leaving his job at the end of the year, but his office says he won't appear unless it's an open hearing, and even then, he'll only consider it. Plus, the acting OMB director, Russell Vought. Another possible no-show on Thursday, former National Security Advisor John Bolton. His lawyers say he will not voluntarily appear and are now waiting on a subpoena. Meanwhile, House Judiciary member Andy Biggs on Fox Today called on House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff to also face questioning in the impeachment inquiry.
The question is he think he's going to testify, or is he going to not testify? He's actually become a witness in this case because of the whistleblower and his connection to the whistleblower and his staff's connection.
As much as there is scrutiny of Democrats for coming to whatever conclusions they may have come to, I think it's fair to say that Republicans ought not come to the conclusion that no matter what the evidence shows, President Trump will be exonerated.
As for the transcripts of depositions that have happened over the last 6 weeks of the official inquiry, Speaker Pelosi says they are looking into releasing them soon. Arthel?
Lauren Blanchard. Thank you, Lauren. Eric?
Well, President Trump naming a new acting Homeland Security Secretary. He's longtime DHS official Chad Wolf. He will take over for Kevin McAleenan on an interim basis. But right now, the White House is not saying who will be nominated for the job permanently. Lucas Tomlinson has more on all this from Washington.
Before departing for his rally in Mississippi, President Trump told reporters he has appointed Chad Wolf as acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security.
I put in a very good man who's highly respected, and he's acting right now, and we'll see where that goes. And as you know, John, I like acting. I mean, a lot of people say I like acting. It gives you great flexibility. I do.
It's not clear when Wolf will take over as acting DHS chief, the federal government's third largest agency with over 240,000 employees. Wolf will be the fifth person to hold this role in the Trump White House. Officials say President Trump has no plans to nominate Wolf to the job permanently. Secretary Wolf is the former chief of staff to former DHS Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and has risen through the ranks of DHS on and off since its creation following the September 11th terrorist attacks. His nomination as Undersecretary for Policy at DHS remains stalled in the Senate. Officials say Wolf has a very favorable reputation at DHS. Kevin McAleenan, the current acting DHS Secretary, will remain on the job until Veterans Day, according to White House spokesman Hogan Gidley. Ken Cuccinelli, currently the acting head of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services and seen as an immigration hardliner, is a potential candidate to take over in the future. At its creation, DHS was focused on counterterrorism. The Coast Guard was moved under its purview to protect America's ports. DHS is also responsible for enforcing the country's immigration laws, the signature issue for President Trump's agenda and hopes for a second term in 2020. There are now at least 10 acting secretaries and senior officials serving in President Trump's cabinet. In Washington, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
Powerful winds now dying down in Southern California, but the region still remains under a red flag warning as at least 13 separate fires burn across the state. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom is slamming intentional power outages meant to decrease fire risks.
You've got to consider the life impacts, the economic and social impacts of these power cutoffs that in some cases put lives at risk, perhaps arguably in even more significant ways than a sparked line.
Let's go to Christina Coleman now. She is live in Santa Paula, California, near where the devastating Maria fire sparked to life. Christina, what's happening there?
Well, Arthel, right now these firefighters have been working around the clock to try and put out hot spots. I want to show you a couple of them here behind me. They have been climbing up these ash-covered hills. Sometimes they're knee-deep in ash, getting deep in there and trying to just burn out these hot spots. They're blowing the water on there. They're trying to do everything they can to get this fire under control because it only takes seconds for these embers to flare up and spread, and it could spark another massive wildfire. Now, at this point, the Maria fire burned at least 9,400 acres around here. They threatened 2,500 structures, and this fire has actually burned 3 homes since it started Thursday evening while kids were out trick-or-treating in nearby neighborhoods. The fire was fueled by the tail end of those strong Santa Ana winds that we've been experiencing here. Now, crews have made some really good progress since yesterday on this fire. It's now 20% contained, but we are not out of the clear just yet.
There is still cause for caution and concern. We are not out of the woods yet. As the wind shifts, we have a whole new fuel bed that opens up and is subject to a pretty significant firefight.
Now, this is video from when the Maria fire started on South Mountain, just south of Santa Paula, where we're at right now. Utility company Southern California Edison said it re-energized a 16,000-volt power line minutes before a nearby hill went up in flames and led to this Maria fire. But the cause of this fire is still under investigation. So as of now, we have that red flag warning, and we have at least 1,200 firefighters that are around this immediate area. They're chopping down wood, they're clearing out brush, they're hosing down these hot spots that they're really digging in to find, and they're continuing to do that for hours, and they'll do that long after this fire was put out just to make sure that everything is safe around here because they don't want to lose any more property. Again, this fire threatened about 2,300 structures, and it burned down 3 homes. Arthel?
They're working so incredibly hard. Christina Coleman, thank you.
Well, Airbnb now says it is banning house parties. That after a shooting left 5 people dead in San Francisco in a suburb there on Halloween night. The company says it learned that the renter in that case lied to the host about why she was booking that property. Jackie Heinrich is following the developments from our New York newsroom. Hi, Jackie.
Hi, Eric. The swift action from Airbnb comes as they expect to announce an initial public offering in 2020. Police so far have no suspects in custody. 5 people are dead, and both the homeowner and their neighbors are very upset. The shooting happened at a $1 million rented mansion in Orinda, California, just outside San Francisco. More than 100 people were there after local media reports someone circulated this post on social media promoting an Airbnb mansion party. The property owner told the Washington Post he rented his home to a woman who claimed she was organizing a 12-person family reunion. The local NBC affiliate further reported the woman said she chose that location to escape smoke from nearby wildfires. Halloween night, the Post reports the homeowner got noise complaints from neighbors. He checked his security cameras and saw a huge crowd, so he called police. They were already en route when the shooting happened. 3 people died at the scene. 2 more died later at the hospital. The victims range in age from 19 to 29 years old.
The house, which was not designed to hold 100 people, had at least 100 people trying to flee it on those windy streets. So when the officers arrived, it was a very chaotic scene, and there was a lot of noise and yelling and people running.
Police found 2 guns at the house, but so far have no suspects in custody. Today, Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky said the company will crack down on party houses because of this. In a series of tweets saying Airbnb will increase manual screening for high-risk reservations, create a dedicated party house rapid response team, and also take immediate action against users who violate the rules. He tweeted, "We must do better, and we will. This is unacceptable." Airbnb says the listing where the shooting happened did have specific house rules banning parties. Both California Governor Gavin Newsom and Senator Kamala Harris responded to this incident by pushing for tougher gun control laws. Eric.
All right, Jackie. Thank you. Arthel?
Well, Eric, the White House doubling down, insisting the president didn't do anything wrong in his call with the Ukrainian president, as President Trump says that he might revive fireside chats and read the transcript of that call on live TV. Would it help him make his point, or could the plan backfire?
This program is sponsored by Glucerna, Everyday Progress.
Is that net carbs or total? Not enough fiber. Chocolate would be good.
Snacking should be sweet and simple. The delicious taste of Glucerna gives you the sweetness you crave while helping you manage your blood sugar. Glucerna, Everyday Progress.
Dodge power dollars to all, and to all, out of my way!
The Dodge Black Friday sales event is coming to town.
Great weather, great friends. You just saved a bunch of money by switching your boat insurance to Geico.
It was easy. Folks, can it get any better than this?
Is that what I think it is? That is an armada of tiny sushi boats.
Awesome! I forgot to pack lunch.
You had one job. Oh, chopsticks, wasabi, and soy. Coming in a little hot.
It only gets better when you switch and save with Geico.
With laser-measured floor liners and cargo liners, bump step, plus the cup phone to secure your phone, seat protectors, or no-drill mud flaps. WeatherTech's American-made products are perfect protection for any season. Order at WeatherTech.com. WeatherTech, made right in America.
Growing a business is tough. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. Today's consumer expects quality and convenience. If your product requires assembly or delivery, Tackle has a network of over 70,000 providers who can make your company more productive. Tackle can even help with same-day service. The Tackle app uses state-of-the-art technology to connect you with skilled people who can help with all kinds of small jobs. Visit tackle.com/partnerships to see how Tackle can help your company grow.
Sandals Grand Antigua was incredible.
The pool was as large as the ocean.
And the beach was perfect. But what I remember most was falling in love all over again. Sandals Grand Antigua. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
People, our sales now apply to only 10 frames.
A new low.
At VisionWorks, our sales are good on over 500 frames.
Why are you so weird?
For a limited time, get 2 complete pairs for $49. Really? VisionWorks. See the difference.
Wow. This is a huge change.
These women are reacting to the miraculous results of Sudden Change Under Eye Firming Serum. Sudden Change lends onto your skin to visibly tighten and revitalize your eyes. Just apply a tiny drop of Sudden Change Serum to give your under eyes an instantly younger, fresher look. Order now and you'll receive the Sudden Change gift box with intensive wrinkle repair, 3-in-1 clay mask, dark circle gel, and under eye firming serum. That's a $75 value for only $29.95.
Visit Jason and Todd at the Diamond District.
Hi, I'm Jason. And I'm Todd. Visit the Diamond District for the largest selection of GIA and Forevermark Loose Certified Diamonds. And the most beautiful diamond jewelry, all priced at or below the internet.
The Diamond District.
Do you think you can actually apply due process retroactively? Don't you think the better procedure would have been to have this out in the open from the beginning and not just selectively leak and by extension lie about what did and did not happen? I mean, how are you going to put the genie back in the bottle?
The White House again insisting that the president did nothing wrong on his phone call with the Ukrainian president after House Democrats voted to formalize proceedings on Thursday. This as President Trump tells the Washington Examiner, quote, "This is over a phone call that is a good call at some point. I'm going to sit down perhaps as a fireside chat on live television. I will read the transcript of the call because people have to hear it. When you read it, it's a straight call." Okay, joining me now is Crystal Hayes. She's a Washington correspondent and congressional reporter for USA Today. I want to start here. Lauren Blanchard just reported on this. Last night, House GOP Conference Chair Liz Cheney from Wyoming wrote a letter to Speaker Pelosi calling on the Speaker to immediately release transcripts of depositions that have already taken place before or behind closed doors since September 24th when the impeachment inquiry began. So do you think Speaker Pelosi will comply? If she doesn't, will this diminish the potency and and relevancy of the upcoming open hearings?
Well, I mean, we've heard from House Chairman Adam Schiff that those depositions, those transcripts of all those private depositions could be released as early as next week. We might start to see some of them. I don't know if Speaker Pelosi will necessarily be responding to Liz Cheney, but they've set out to say that they're going to be releasing these transcripts from the get-go.
Plan's already in the works, is what you're saying.
Yes, definitely.
But so, Crystal, meanwhile, the Democrats are planning to call back some of the same people who testified in those closed-door sessions back to testify in the public hearing. So do you think this will quell the claim that Democrats have been working in secret?
I think so, but I think a lot of those arguments about the process could linger, especially as we hold these public hearings in the House Intelligence Committee, because one of the main complaints by Republicans has been that, the president and his counsel have not been able to question or offer any sort of defense. And in these hearings that they're planning to hold in the House Intelligence Committee, that's going to remain the case.
But if, as the public impeachment testimonies are about to begin, the public part of this, if Republican lawmakers plan to just hammer the process, providing no defense for the president, I mean, how will that read in open hearings?
Yeah, not as well as it has right now. Once the public is clued in on everything that's happened, especially as we start to get a sense of what happened behind, it's been 100 hours of depositions. Once the public gets these transcripts, once we start to have these hearings, that argument is just not going to really connect with Americans, even if it is right now. And so it's going to be really imperative for Republicans, especially in the House Intelligence Committee hearings where the president and his counsel won't have an active role. They're really going to have to plan a strategic defense of the president in order to kind of, make the case.
Mm-hmm. And how might the open hearings work against the Democrats?
Well, depending on what we heard, what happened in all of these closed-door testimonies. We know top lines from some of these, but there's a lot that we don't know. And each day that we've had these testimonies, Republicans have said that, some of this testimony could work in their favor. We just saw the last one with Morrison. He didn't necessarily believe that anything that the president did was necessarily illegal. So depending on what some of these witnesses said in those testimonies, it's going to really kind of change how we've viewed impeachment. I think this is the next phase, and it's going to be a long phase, but it's going to change a lot of how everything has been going from here on out.
Let's circle back to the top now. President Trump told the Washington Examiner Thursday that he might release the transcript as a fireside chat.
Provide the climax of a decade of international immorality. Powerful and resourceful gangsters have banded together to make war upon the whole human race. Their challenge has now been flung at the United States of America.
So for context, President Trump is channeling our 32nd president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who for 11 years, just for context, from 1933 to 1944 during World War II and at a time of uncertainty, would address the country on evening radio. We just played some of it. This was to silence rumors and explain his policies. President Roosevelt was said to have exuded self-assurance to the American public. So how would a fireside chat from President Trump pan out?
Well, we don't know how or if these will actually happen, but if they do, they're likely to be very, very different than what you just heard from Roosevelt. This was a time of the Great Depression, offering Americans reassurance, and President Trump is likely more likely to offer a defense for himself, not only reading this transcript, but also, probably a speech outlining that he believes that he did nothing wrong and this impeachment inquiry is a hoax. But the problem is, as we all know, is the president likes to veer off script. He often likes to ad-lib many things in his rallies, from speeches. And if he does do that, it could pose a problem if, it could lead to some more headlines that might not be so flattering. And the stakes really couldn't be higher for the president at this particular moment. So anything he says, it could really be used against him in this impeachment inquiry.
Finally and quickly, though, regardless of the format, will we see an actual transcript, not just the summary that has been released thus far regarding that July 25 phone call?
Democrats don't seem too interested in harping down on the content that was not in that call, because the little details that we have learned that were not included in the summary didn't really change the context of the call. But I'm sure that they would love to have one if one does exist, though this summary was kind of compiled from a variety of notes. So that remains to be seen. But I'm sure Democrats would love to get a more fuller idea of that call.
We will continue to watch. Crystal Hayes, thank you.
Thank you.
The Trump administration reportedly agreeing to pay California $846,000 over the administration's failed attempt to add that citizenship question to the 2020 census. This after the state sued, citing concerns that it will result in underrepresentation of minorities. Back in June, the Supreme Court struck down the administration's reason for incorporating that question, calling it, quote, contrived. The settlement, we're told, will cover all legal fees and related costs that have been incurred by that state.
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden making his pitch to voters in Iowa today, where recent polls show a tightening race among the top-tier Democratic hopefuls. We are live in Cedar Rapids with the latest from the campaign trail. That's up next.
The Japanese are planning something big.
In a time when America stood for honor and sacrifice.
I'm Mike Ditka. Tell me, are you getting all the benefits you're entitled to? If you're not 100% sure, it's time to call the Medicare helpline. You could be eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan with no copays, no deductibles that includes dental and vision coverage, prescription drug coverage, free gym memberships, and no monthly premiums. That's no, as in zero. If you're not 100% sure you're getting all the benefits you deserve, it's time to call the Medicare helpline.
The Medicare helpline is now open. Call now to instantly find out if you qualify to save money and get extra benefits, including prescription drug coverage, dental and vision coverage, free gym membership, and more with no monthly premiums. But you must call now because the Medicare annual enrollment period ends on December 7th.
Call the Medicare helpline and get all the benefits you deserve.
Call 800-215-2112 or go to MedicareHelpline.com. Call now.
This was when I noticed how white my son's teeth were and how yellow mine were, and I needed to make a change.
My smile's yellowish or dingy, and it definitely made me self-conscious.
I can't magically become younger, but I can certainly look younger. And I'm doing that with Smile Actives.
Introducing Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that gets your teeth white and keeps them white.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
What makes Smile Actives different is that when added to any toothpaste, its revolutionary PolyClean technology activates, transforming into a powerful microfoam that goes into the enamel surface to lift and remove deep stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
Look at the power of Smile Actives on years of food stains and even coffee and wine stains. Smile Actives is safe and effective and also works on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
This is after using Smile Actives, and you can really see how white my teeth are now next to my son's.
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when you can whiten your teeth at home with Smile Actives for just $19.95? Order in the next 5 minutes and you'll get a second Smile Actives Power Whitening Gel absolutely free. That's a 50% savings. Perfect for travel, work, or to give as a holiday gift. Order right now and we'll sweeten the deal and include free shipping. That's 2 for the price of 1. Yours for just $19.95. Best of all, Smile Actives will get your teeth 6 shades whiter, guaranteed, or your money back. Hurry and take advantage of this special TV offer not available in stores. Call 1-800-259-1366 or go to smileactives.com. That's 1-800-259-1366. Order now.
Surprise! A new Buick? For me?
To James from James. That's just what I wanted.
Is this a new Buick? I Secret Santed myself.
I shouldn't have. I have been very good this year.
I love it. I love it.
This year, turn Black Friday into Buick Friday, all month long. Current eligible non-GM owners and lessees get 20% below MSRP on most of these 2019 Buick models.
How about we do better enforcement of the tax laws?